So question for you, like in regards to your VAs, do they have set categories, or is it kind of like go source, house and hold and beauty, for example, just
Yeah, I kind of let them lean into their strengths, whatever category they're strongest in. Typically, I'm looking for someone who's strong in the categories that I'm strong in because it's easier to train them. I saw like the last application, I saw someone who said, oh, he's really good at electronics, but like it's not really what we do. So I didn't know if I didn't really want to bring him on because of that. You know, it'd be a whole new ballpark to learn that thing. And I'd ideally want to learn it first and then, you know, see combine whatever knowledge we can together. So yeah, try to stick with whatever they're strong at. Usually they're strong at what I'm good at, one of the 3 categories that I sell in.
And why is that? Why not? Like, because I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like, I can't begin to tell you the number of people who are saying, hi Tom, can I not just give you $10,000 and you hire me a VA and then they do it all for me? Like, that's the classic one. Like, why not? Can you not do that? Why can't you say, go do electronics, I'll give you the money and buy your deals?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, because a lot of people have like the conception that they just started and they don't know anything about sourcing and they could just hire a VA and to do all the work for them. But you have to know how to source to be able to teach them. They can't they can't perform at the highest level if you're not able to transfer some of your knowledge over. You know, maybe they had other employers, but who knows if those employers were doing it the right way. So, you know, you have to have some baseline knowledge in whatever you're doing. I wouldn't say that someone should get a VA until maybe 3 months of really like learning and understanding the categories that you're focused in. You know, you want to make sure you have that knowledge, whereas you're confident in being able to teach someone it, because, you know, if they're just sending you 5 leads and you don't even know how do you even know if they're good or not if you don't know how to do it? So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's like, while I was just talking to you, I was thinking like, Elon Musk doesn't just go and hire people who say they're good, you know, like good rocket engineers and hope for the best. He's like, no, like he understands engineering to a good standard already. And then, but also as well, like he will probably find very good rocket engineers and get them to hire really good rocket engineers. And as a result, he builds SpaceX. But exactly. Good people hire good people and they work for good people. Like the best VAs aren't probably going to work for someone who doesn't care. Like you've got to be good at what you do.
Yeah, like what you're saying, it's like if Elon didn't know anything about cars or engineering and he just tried to start Tesla, like I don't think it would have gone well.
Not at all. And like, but you get that, you do get that a lot, whereby people with a lot of money try and build a company and they just throw money at the problem, and it's very expensive to solve those problems because you're basically paying to realize that you don't know what you don't know, which can be, you need very deep pockets to learn that mistake.
Yeah, so, not everyone starting an Amazon business has those type of pockets.
I agree, most people don't. So obviously you're doing, like, let me ask a question, like, why are you going into wholesale? Like why, like, or like, what's your split between OA and wholesale? Tell me about that revenue.
Yeah, so 85% OA, and in the last few months I've been able to get up to about 15% wholesale, like 1 brand direct and then 1 supplier. Just got a 3rd, so we'll see if I can get that up a little bit more in terms of like the percentage split. You don't really need too many suppliers. That's really the misconception, that a lot of people think they need like 20 suppliers. If you get 3 to 4 solid ones, you can easily get your split to like 50-50 at the scale. So,
and like, why are you doing wholesale? And like, or like, yeah. Why are you doing wholesale? Why are you not staying OA? But also as well, if wholesale's so good, why are you still doing OA?
Yeah, so combine all the questions together, I'd say they're kind of all related in a sense, because arbitrage there's so many opportunities still, like it just doesn't make sense to cut it all out completely. And I have that side of the business pretty automated at this point, you know, with the team and stuff like that. I don't want to just let them all go. I think it's going just fine. Like there's no reason to do that. I think being able to scale, that's the one thing I've kind of had trouble with, is being able to break like 150, 200K a month with the arbitrage. You really need to have a lot of systems in place and like a purchaser. It just gets really complicated at scale. So I've kind of found that like, you know, 100 to 150,000 is like the max I'm going to really take the arbitrage side of it, and then put in wholesale, you know, you can get that to 300,000 a month. So that's kind of the vision there for that. And yeah, so why wholesale? It's, you don't have to deal with the order cancellations. They get a little bit more annoying as you start to grow past, you know, if you grow to 6 figures, it kind of gets annoying keeping track of all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of just a breaking point of where I feel I'm at. Not to say there's people doing, like we were talking about Soros before, you know, you can do $1 million a month OA. It's possible. Just gets a little more complicated. So I think having a little bit of mix of wholesale in there is a nice way to grow without dealing with cancellations and more headaches.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. I think, like, I see it in my business is you can place more orders, but you have to deal with more problems and it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So if you want to keep scaling, it's lots of little microtransactions, whereas when you go into wholesale, you can start buying bigger. So as a result, it's the same number of transactions, but physical cash value is a lot greater. So you're using leverage in a different way.
Yeah, and I think it's teaching me relationships and like the value of network, which, you know, it's arbitrage. It's easy to just be in the dark and like working yourself, not talking to anyone, because it's all online. Like you're not calling anyone up to place an order or anything like that. You're not building a real relationship unless it's like other OA sellers, you know, it's not like you're building a relationship with other companies, stuff like that. So I found that it's been a pretty interesting way to grow professionally and grow my business.
And tell me about that. Like, is it you doing the calling, building the relationships, or do you get your VAs to do that? How does that work?
Yeah, so I haven't really outsourced that yet. I've been kind of just learning it myself. I don't really do too many emails. I kind of just pick up the phone or go to ASD was a good event. That's where I found my first supplier. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's bi or twice a year in Las Vegas. There's one coming up in August, and I'm going to be going to that. So hopefully I'll get another supplier or two there. And I was able to find one without really even knowing what I was doing. So it's a pretty good opportunity for anyone to find their first supplier, because you get to meet with them face to face, you know, shake their hand, tell them about yourself and your company. So it was a really good way to realize that like wholesale is not as complicated. It's more just relationship building.
And let me ask you a question. When you get that, tell you a bit about yourself and your company, you know, like I'm just, you know, people watching this might be like, hi, my name is Tom and I sell from my bedroom. Like, you know, obviously you're not saying that, but like, what do you say? Like, how does that conversation go?
Yeah, I'm not starting off saying, hi, I'm an Amazon seller. I know a bunch of people say that, like, don't say you're an Amazon seller. It's definitely true. They don't want to hear the word Amazon. And if they ask you, just be honest about it. That's what I was saying. It's like one of our channels. I kind of act like we're a bigger company than we are. Fake it till you make it, saying it's definitely truth here. You know, you have to kind of present yourself bigger than you are, because they do want to work with someone who's professional. As long as you're professional at the end of the day, they're not going to know that you're running it out of your bedroom or whatever, unless they ask it if you have a commercial address or something like that. But you know, with the prep center that I have, it's a commercial address, so I don't really have that problem. I tell them it's my warehouse, you know, and if they ask, are you using a prep center, I'll be honest, but I've never really had that come up. So
but what's interesting is a lot of big companies, or a lot of companies who do elements, they will use third-party logistics, which is, you know, like, it does happen. So like it can happen. These things. Like,
so I don't really say a prep center, because they probably don't even know what that means if they're like an old school supplier. I'll just say we have a logistics service or something like that. That's the traditional way to say it.
No, I like it. Hey, thank you.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick moment out to say, if you're thinking about growing your business, or perhaps maybe even struggling to grow it and you just don't have enough time, well, a virtual assistant could be the answer that you're looking for. What we've done is I've put together a webinar, or actually a recording of how you can grow your business by 10,000 per month, and also how you can do this in just 5 hours per week. And this is based off our own experience and what we've done with other customers. Now, if you're interested, have a look at the link down below in the description. This is going to be really simple. It's going to be virtual assistant 10,000 per month. And I'm just going to document and I'll talk you through the exact numbers and everything that you need to know in that recording. So check that out.
So tell me about the future. Like, you're doing 15% away right now. ASD, you're going to go this year. You've got 3 VAs. One of them's an admin. You're doing, you know, you're doing over $1 million now in sales. Like, what does 1 year's time look like for you? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So ideally, I'd like to have my private label business up and running and starting to sell products in a year from now. So I want to build, I want to build a private label business. I think having like equity in a company is really the biggest way to gain wealth. Not the easiest way, but it definitely is the number one way, in my opinion, to gain wealth, because you'll see people sell their company. I'm not going into the mindset to sell it, but you know, you'll see people sell their company for $100 million if it really gets to that point. You know, you never know what it can become. So yeah, that's my mindset on it. I'm going to still continue to do OA and wholesale. It's just a big cash flow churner, you know, and it's making me enough money to have a living. So I'm just going to keep going with that and do, like I said, the 50-50 split by the year end. That's the goal. I'll probably keep running that 50-50 split. I know Garrett all at Amazon has that type of model and it works really well. So I know it's proven to do, you know, 2-3 million a year. That's kind of the goal. This year I should do 1.5-2 million-ish around there. So get it to 3 million maybe in 2024, and yeah, continue to do that, and then build the private label business. That's really like my long-term kind of goal, is to really have like a huge brand that I can, you know, have equity in, like I was saying.
Will you get a warehouse?
We'll see. I mean, if I have like a $50 million company, you know, I'll probably get a headquarters. You know, I won't really running it in a third-party logistics get a little too complicated, but yeah, we'll see. The prep center's model is just so great. It gives you so much time freedom, and you can be in it wherever you want in the world. I know there's private label sellers running it just from a third-party logistics doing like 10, 20, 30 million a year. So it's definitely possible. That's probably what I'd run. And it's not like out of the question that I get like a massive warehouse if I have like this big company in the future, because that's the only way you can really build a culture, you know, having everything everything in one place.
Yeah, I still remember when I lived in Thailand, I met so many private label sellers who were just like, oh, around the pool, like, where's the stock? And they're like in a warehouse in America somewhere. I was like, okay, cool. And then, and I get it. And I think the world has come to a different place whereby we're now seeing that you can build a big business without actually having to physically do it all. There's a lot of services that will help you. Yes, you're not going to be as profitable, but like, you're probably okay with that because I'm living in a country or spending the majority of my time in a country that costs a fraction of the US. I don't need that much money.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like, what is your hourly rate? That's the way I think about it. Like, not prepping all these products and not having to be in the warehouse all the time, it definitely makes my hourly rate a lot higher. It might lower the margins, but what I'm making in an hour is definitely more significant. So you can dive into other income streams, stuff like that, definitely with having the more freedom to move around.
I love it. And if, like, the question I kind of asked you, like, it will kind of wrap up, like, if people are looking to follow in your footsteps, like, on reflection, what kind of advice would you give them? Like, maybe learnings that you've had to say that this would be what I'd be thinking about. Any kind of like things you'd recommend?
Yeah, so I think that, ultimately depends on your situation, but you just kind of have to start out and understand that it's not going to be the easiest journey. You're going to face a lot of issues, and a lot of people flaunt it to make it seem like it's so easy. I can't even count on one hand the amount of like significant mistakes I made in the first year. So, or two hands, I mean. So yeah, you have to understand that it's a process. You're not going to become rich overnight. I know my friend, he says, it's a get rich slow type of thing, but you can get very wealthy off Amazon just from even wholesale or arbitrage or whatever. So yeah, I think you have to understand that it's going to take time. It's going to be a process, but it is one of the easiest businesses to really take to 7 figures and beyond. Like, how many people we've seen grow their business like pretty quickly. There's no such thing that you see like people running like a car wash making $1 million in their first year, or $1 million revenue in their first year. It's more rare. So this is definitely because you're leveraging Amazon's third-party logistics and all that stuff, their customers. So it makes it so much easier to grow so fast. So yeah, remove that time window, and then also really try to focus on 1 or 2 categories like we were saying before. It makes it a lot easier to learn, and definitely put in the hours. That's the one main thing, one of the biggest things. People don't realize that you have to put in the time. So you get what you put into this business, you get out what you put in. So you really have to make sure you're putting in the hours, especially in the beginning, to learn how to source. I had sessions where I was doing like 8 to 10 hours of sourcing in a row. So like, that's what it took to really master it. Like they say, like 100 hours, you become 95% better than everyone else. You have to put in those 100 hours to really become good at sourcing, and that's just good.
Yeah,
becoming an excellent sourcer, it's probably 1,000 hours. So
you get the 10,000 hour rule, the expert level. I think they said
yeah,
the thing.
Yeah, 100 hours will make you good, and it's probably like 10,000 make you an expert. So
it's crazy, and I agree with you. Like, focus, niche down to drive that. You got to work for it. Like, what's really funny is I remember when I first started on Amazon, 6 figures seemed like a lot of money, and I've been doing it 6 years now. Now 7 figures is like, oh, that's fine, don't worry about it. And no disrespect to anyone who is not doing 6 figures or 7 figures now. Like, it's a massive achievement, but like, it's becoming easier and easier to make. And I think when like, give it 10 more years, 8 figures will be like, oh, that's fine. Like, everyone can do 8 figures.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that's easy. It's not. It's a massive achievement. Not. But on the back of these platforms, things like Amazon, we're just seeing it's easier and easier to generate revenue and obviously wealth from that, which is like absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, the platform's continually growing. It's not going to stop growing. Amazon's the biggest company in the world. I don't see that changing. So yeah, there'll be more and more customers. E-commerce is growing, but yeah, it was the same way. So I was like, if I get this to 100K like total in like by the summer, so that was January. And then, yeah, I was like 100K total would be amazing. Like we got to get it to that point. And I did 100K in the summer in 1 month. So like, it's really insane, like the limiting mindset I had. But, thank God I kept going and really just worked really hard and got to that point where it was 100K in a month, which was like blew my mind. So now it's kind of just massive, like normal. Yeah.
Massive respect. Hey, seriously, well done. Really, really well done. And thank you for sharing. If anyone wants to get in contact, what's the best way?
Yeah. So Instagram is pretty much the main platform. Started uploading on YouTube. So I upload on YouTube weekly, and Twitter, all the same tag. It's Joe Parfenic. Probably could just put it in the comments how to spell that, because yeah, it's a very hard last name to spell.
No, I love it. So if anyone's interested, obviously I'll put that in the comments, so have a look down below. You can obviously link back to Joe and look at all his handles. Like, I think, thank you so much for sharing. Massive respect for what you've achieved and what you've done, and hopefully like in like a year's time I can kind of connect again, perhaps maybe fly out and come see you, see what you're doing, see if you're a $50 million warehouse or wherever you are, because limiting belief, you're going to get there. It's not going to be 23 when it'll be 50 million. I absolutely love it. But I just want to say for myself and everyone watching, thank you so much for sharing and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be on.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.